even other cars in this shop that haven't gone 459. You know, I'm just
Here we go.
happy to say that, you know, I am the fastest car in the shop.
I hear the train a-coming. It's rolling around the bend. And I ain't seen the sunshine. I don't know when. I'm stuck in Folsom Prison, and time keeps dragging on. But that train keeps rolling. All down the line I'm going. When I was just a baby, my mama told me, son, always be a good boy. Don't ever play with guns.
Richie, what are you doing over here? Richie's never on camera, so now he's on camera.
Now you're on camera, so now it's video wars.
Well, so the original car, the one with the orange hockey stripe.
Yes, the
We
original
had
347.
Yellow Bullet and did really good. Well, I would say really good. But we ran some
We
good
did pretty damn
numbers.
good for a 4,000-pound race car.
Yeah, we ran some good numbers at Yellow Bullet, and then we were chasing our tail, trying to get it to go a little bit
It
faster.
went like 475 at a $1.59. It weighed every bit of 3,900 pounds, race ready, and it was a heavy, heavy bitch.
And it wasn't built to go that fast because it only had an 850 kg.
It only had an 850 kg, and it was on a single 118 Gen 1 precision turbo.
On a big stuff 3.
Big Stuff 3, which, you know, simple
Fucking
is,
sucks.
simple is, works sometimes. You know, and the car did what it did. I ran tri-state streetcar list with it. I ran some other events. I took it to Woodward, did the Woodward drags for Hot Rod, and some other no prep stuff with it. I was on Street Outlaws twice with it, so that car was really good to me. And but it was never. The plan was always to replace that car anyway with a better car.
So we got this car.
Yeah, so fast forward, we crashed the car, hit the wall right before the 330. Basically, the rear end of the car took flight because I didn't have enough downforce on the back of the car. We had no drag wing, just a stock base model spoiler that was on the car. And that problem had actually been happening for years. I never realized it because it would just lose traction sometimes towards the end of the track, and typically it was late at night and it was misty out, and I would always just blame it on condensation on the track. But apparently what was going on is as the rear would extend, air would circle back underneath it, come over the top of the car, go underneath the car and push the back end up. And at Capitol Raceway, it did that, and basically jerked the wheel right out of my hands. Hit the wall twice, spun around. Luckily I was okay, and the car took all the damage. So that was the end of that car. Firewall was messed up. A-pillar got messed up from the wheel being shoved back into it. The footwell got crunched a little bit. Hurt my ankle pretty good. Rolled my wrist over the wheel pretty good. We were able to save the motor. We were able to save. Did the turbo still work after that?
Yeah, you sold it.
Yeah. Okay. Turbo was fine. So anyway, that car was cut up, never to be used again. Found this car on Facebook, Yellow Bullet, Florida.
Yeah, it was in Pensacola.
So the Panhandle.
Yeah. We drove to Pensacola.
Hindsight, didn't really get everything I thought I was getting, but no crying over spilt milk. We'll talk about that when we get to the transmission. Wasn't quite as clean as what the pictures looked like. Brad went down, picked the car up in my trailer, got it back here, and started working on it pretty much right away. Had the motor set in it in typical Brad fashion in the first day.
I think it was like I unloaded the trailer.
It's his favorite thing to do is throw the motor in a car as soon as it comes to the shop. I realized quickly I wanted the car to look a little different. So what you see here in between us is kind of a combination of a VFN fiberglass front clip for a stock wheelbase car, not the Pro Mod front end. Grafted into it is a carbon fiber Sunoco style 5-6 inch hood. So you got fiberglass, carbon fiber, all grafted together. Was done here, was done by the previous owner, but we had to reinforce everything because it was starting to crack at the hood line. And then we reinforced everything here and painted it in-house here.
Also probably should mention that Justin drove all the way to Ohio to get it for you.
That's true. Justin Conrad, friend of the shop. Very special guy. Drove all the way.
Not too many people would just drive the whole way to Ohio to fix something.
But he loves F-bodies. I don't think he did it for me. I think he did it for the fact that he loves sport jets. And he went all the way to Ohio to pick that up. And thank you, Justin. So anyway, that's why the front end looks so distinct on this car. Basically, you know, you just don't see it done this way. So I get a lot of compliments on it. And it's exactly how I want it to look.
Well, I brought the car, I did sometime in August of 2020, I brought the car home. It was running in October of 2021.
Right.
And then you guys did your first pass with it in November.
Right. Yeah, so a year and like 3 or 4 months later, we wanted, the plan was the whole time to bring it to World Cup. We worked on parts, fabrication, all of that effort to get to that point. As World Cup approached, unfortunately, Brad here had an accident, auto accident, very minor.
Yeah, very minor. I spent 10 days in the hospital, so it's very minor.
It's the longest anyone has ever spent in the hospital for a sprained wrist. But no, seriously, he hurt himself. And he was very lucky not to have died. In typical selfish fashion, I decided that
You were just gonna have a bunch of other people come and wrench on the car and finger.
you got to think about the timing. The timing was
It was 1 week before.
It was a
World
week
Cup.
before World Cup, and Brad couldn't really respond verbally, so I took that as permission.
Brad couldn't walk either.
I took that as permission to go ahead and continue with racing. I know that's what he would have wanted. He would never want the show to stop when, you know, just because
If I would have died, it would have been a
he was
different
hurt.
story.
So the show must go on, and we had some people jump in. Adam Arndt, some of my buddies the night before the race, Charlie and other people we had at the shop working, all pitched in to get the car, basically so it can make a pass. It really wasn't 100%, but it was down there, it was running under its own power, and you know, we were able to make some passes. Nothing to write home about. We were fighting some valve train issues that we didn't realize we had. Really should have had the motor looked at while it was sitting forever. And
We all told Mike that he should send the motor out while it was getting built, but you know, he kept saying, "No, it's good, it's good."
it'll be good. I thought it'd be good. It wasn't good. It was anything but good. Went to MIR, made some passes. It was a good experience. Can't wait to go back here in a few weeks. Got the car back from MIR, decided to do some additional testing with it, which is where we actually made our first passes down the track. Out of the first 4 passes, it went 121, 60 foot every time. First pass, it didn't make the whole trip. It was going to the right, from what I remember. Second pass, it made the whole trip, went like 5.0 at 145, which we actually thought was pretty decent considering we didn't really know what the new combination was going to do. The new combo was, our old combo was a 540 Profiler 174X heads, Brodix cast aluminum block, and we kept the same motor, and we went to twin 88s from Jose at forced induction, because that old combination needed work on the hot side, and it just had a lot of back pressure issues, and we were kind of at the max of what we could do with that combination. So again, fast forward these 4 passes, 5.0 145, felt pretty good. Went to MIR for a test day. First pass in MIR was faster in the 330 than it was for that 5.0 pass, considerably faster, but they didn't have the clocks 8th mile on, so we didn't get a time.
There was 2 things that I had seen in the Haltech after MIR that nobody had picked up because they didn't like put the stuff together. This has a triple dump valve set up in the transmission, and it's air actuated. And if you don't energize the valves are open. So the whole time he had been driving at MIR and also at Cecil, the valves were open the entire time, all three valves. And they're jetted differently, so you can tighten the trans up by how you open and close them. So I think when we went to MIR, I had closed those three valves. Okay, but what we didn't know, and this wasn't until after MIR, when we found out there was another valve in the transmission.
Right, an internal.
Yeah, and that one's the opposite way, where it's always open if it's energized. So it's kind of backwards.
Yeah.
They're backwards from each other. It's pain
So
in the ass.
we were learning about the dumps throughout. Second pass in MIR, which is the fourth one of the 2021 testing passes, it gave up the ghost on the valve train. We had issues with the lifters, had started to come apart, ate the cam, and it was just time to get the motor freshened up and rebuilt. So that's how we wrapped up 21. Got the motor back.
It was April.
April. Lorenzo's fast flow cylinder heads in Pendel. I've known Lorenzo for years. He's the one I've had build my motors my entire racing career. Met him way back in the day when he worked with Frank Bash. That's a way back name. Anyway, got the motor back, got in the car, went out for some testing. Well, even before we went for testing, we realized that the car was smoking pretty good out of the left side.
On the hub dyno.
On the hub dyno we have here. Chasing our tails with that for quite some time. Brought it to a Street Outlaws event.
Well, you did a test and tune rental at Maple Grove first. Remember we did that rental where we had the Pro Mod and this there?
Yeah, we did that. The car seemed to have slowed down considerably in the 60 foot as well by that time, and we were fighting traction and just anytime we tried to bring the power in, the tire would kick 100 feet, 150 feet out. Not to mention we had all the smoke coming out of the exhaust still. So it just really wasn't a pleasant experience. Next race was a Street Outlaws race.
Yeah.
We wanted to go to the event because it was no prep style. Street Outlaws, a lot of people there. We thought we had fixed the smoking issue. We hadn't. I'll just say the eventual fix for that was the head stud.
Yeah, the head stud.
Going through the actual exhaust port wasn't sealed correctly. So we had to reseal that head stud, retorque it, and that actually fixed our smoking issue. Carlos Sabrina, who is a NMRA racer, runs the, I forget the class, they're like a 9-second class with a split.
Is that stock coyote? Because they have the sealed.
Did you have a coyote in that?
Yeah, they have the sealed coyote set up.
Yeah. So he had a coyote, it was a high 9-second, I think it was a high 9-second, somewhere in the 9s, with a stick.
Yeah.
Super lightweight, super friggin' loud, holy shit. We ran him first round, and basically I kicked the tire, I coasted, he put it on full send, hit both walls at Maple Grove, flew through the air, came to a stop, and had a lot of damage to him. Car was destroyed.
He went to the hospital.
Luckily he survived. He went to the hospital where, amazingly, when they were checking him out, I think they found cancer on him, on his kidneys or something to that effect. And he had to go through a bunch of treatment for that. And I believe he was, as of a few weeks ago, mentioned he was cancer free, so we're really glad about that. Anyway, that was that race. Car had, the smoking going on, brought it back, fixed the smoking, went back out for more testing.
Yeah, so we had taken the trans down because of what I saw. I wasn't seeing any shift through the stator, basically, but the stator wasn't tight enough in the torque converter. So on the 2-3 shift or the 1-2 shift, whatever you want to look at, turbo 400, he only has 2-speed, so it's just uses second gear and third gear. When it go from second to third gear,
turbo glide,
there was no drop in RPM at all. It was like literally like a snowmobile. So we decided to change the stator in the converter, which was a whole clusterfuck to begin with. We finally get the thing situated, and while it was out, we decided we were going to take a look at the trans real quick. While looking at the trans, we saw that it was blowing through the clutches, which I kind of thought there was some weird shit going on at one point anyways. But the clutches were smoked in the direct clutch on the trans, and the issue that I had with that was we had just had the trans apart in this like winter and had looked at it and everything looked fresh. What we ended up coming to the conclusion of was that a lot of the parts inside the transmission that we were told was supposed to be built for 3,000 horsepower
Bone stock.
was bone stock, and it just wasn't going to work. So we had some little bit of uphill battle after that. You know, Mike bought some parts, and we had some parts grenade on us, and it was kind of back and forth there for a couple weeks trying to get the trans situated to where we wanted it to be. And
But I am proud to say that I completely rebuilt the trans here myself, in-house, and it couldn't have gone any better. Now I know what I'm doing. So
anyways, we ended up putting back together a setup for him that was similar to what he had originally. Upgraded clutches, some upgraded parts in there as well. Figured out there was a lot of, I guess you could say, the trains came from Florida, and there was a lot of Florida hillbilly stuff going on in there. So we had to kind of figure some of that shit out. There was actually a couple things that I noticed, like some of the dumbest stuff that that we had kind of come across with it was like the pump itself, the two flanges that mount together were warped, and just dumb stuff because there was a lot of casting products that were still in there. So ended up fixing all that, and you know, you guys, well, before we fixed that, we had two renditions here. We fixed the trans the first time, and then we went out and we had an issue with it breaking the valve train. And in the midst of that, I saw a pressure concern in the transmission, so that ended up bringing us back to us pulling the trans back apart to find we had a seal that had a problem with it. Not the kind that swims in the water. But we had a seal that had a problem, and we ended up going back and fixing that.
Really, it was the trans got rebuilt here in-house. Guy that works here, Dick, he rebuilt the trans, and he did a great job.
He loves when you call him Dick.
Yeah, he did a great job, and you know, you couldn't be happier with how it turned out.
But yeah, then you had the valve train issue.
Does he bring a gun?
No. Well, you had the valve at the same time when we had this pressure concern that I saw in the data on the Haltech. We also kicked the push rod. We didn't really know why. It broke the cup on. He has T&D rockers in this. It broke the cup on the rocker, and we just had a bunch of like little dumb shit that you ended up.
The joys of owning a race car is how.
It's always good when things happen when you break one thing and like another thing breaks along with it.
I will say this though, I think the lessons that we learned this year really were about maintenance. You really do have to go over the valve train after every event and every session you do with the car. It's really important, and you know, I don't think that's a mistake that I'm.
Well, Richie, you took footage of us doing the valve train this last run out, didn't you?
Yeah. So, but again, had we done it after every iteration of anything, it may have been caught, may not have been caught, but from now on, it's just our policy now is to run through the valves, even while we're at the track. We pick one side after a certain pass, go through them, make another pass, check the other side. Like, it's just something that you got to do, especially if you want to avoid ruining your day. So
yeah, like on Saturday, this past Friday actually, this past outing, 2 exhaust rockers were loose by probably an extra 10 thousandths from where they should have been. That's a little bit that it takes just to kick that push rod out. You know,
and I'm telling you, we all went over those valves 3 times just to be sure, and they still loosened up. Like, so, again, our issue was related to, the bolt holding down that stand had come loose, which created the extra clearance, which is why we had a problem. Luckily, we didn't tear up any rockers in the process or put a bunch of metal through the motor.
So, recapping on Friday, going to the track on Friday.
Hold on, let me just say this. Friday, I would say, for sure, is the first day of testing that the car was legitimately 100%.
I wouldn't even say it was 100%, but it was at least acting 100%.
Every known issue was fixed.
Yeah.
And we didn't have any unknown issues going into the day. So let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
we knew the trans was about as 100% as we could make it.
Going into the day on Friday, I was skeptical about trans stuff because I knew we weren't for the level of power we're making, I knew that we don't have the trans behind it we really need, but it was one of those, we're just trying to make what we have work. It's not like we can just turn around and go buy a trans tomorrow. Nobody has any. And some of the parts are really hard to get right now as well. So going into it, I was kind of like already leery. I was already leery about what was going to happen, you know, kind of going from there. I knew one of the things that we didn't discuss in here is one of the things that I had noticed is we did have some suspension stuff going on earlier in the season.
We didn't even talk about that.
Yeah, we took all the shocks off. We sent them back to Menser. Menser actually upgraded their rear shocks and their external canister shocks now. The shocks that were on this car, they said that they usually won't use them over 1,500 horsepower, basically. You know, we're easily 1,000 horsepower over that at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So sent them back. One of the other things I noticed is there was a couple adjustments in the suspension that were incorrect. We made some new parts in the suspension as well, so we get more swing on the lower control arm. There's a lot of stuff that we've been changing throughout the year. You know, it's some of the stuff I think we even kind of forget about that we actually did.
Springs were binding on the mounts for the lower.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of stuff we kind of forgot. The little tiny things you do throughout this whole process. And it's, for me, I'm used to it at this point because, you know, we build these cars and it's always an uphill battle a little bit until you get them figured out. You know, when you have something that's a brand new car, it's a whole different story. You get a lot of stuff you got to figure out.
We had a guy here at the shop, his name was Luis Martinez, kept stealing parts off the car. It really wasn't cool, and it's been dealt with.
But so anyways, yeah, and going into Friday, I didn't really know where we were going to be at. I knew I was going to probably have to make some suspension adjustments because we hadn't even used these shocks yet. You know, we hadn't done a single pass on these yet.
Right.
One of the things we did as well before that was I had corner balanced the car with Mike here. We went over a lot of the settings, but you know, as you guys will kind of see with some of our clips, the car kind of really rolls over on Friday on our first couple passes because I had the anti-roll set just static. You know, I didn't know how much we were going to need into it.
Spent 15
whatever.
minutes arguing with these guys that it was not driver error. I wasn't scared of the car.
We're still going to put a camera inside the car so we can see if he's doing one of these with the steering wheel.
I was trying to drive the car, and when you're trying to drive a car out near the 330, where it's coming into its power, you're not going to make steering corrections and save the car.
Well, we got some really cool pictures of how much the car was twisting in the first couple of passes. Yeah.
I think if the car didn't twist that much, it probably would have pulled both wheels and kind of rode the wheelie down the track a little more.
Yeah.
But,
so yeah, I ended up, I put a shit ton of preload into the anti-roll to get it to kind of level the car out. Still probably needs a little bit more in it. But, you know, you guys will see as we go down through, you know, Richie put some video clips in here, but, you know, we really got it to where the car was going down the track pretty, like, we didn't have a problem leaving. All day long, the car left all day. It was, you know, from 0 to 60 foot, we were good. It was after the 60 foot that it just, you know, we were kind of working through how to keep the car off the wall.
So, yeah, we went to a pro test session. Jim Halsey had scheduled for his street car shootout. That event got canceled due to rain, but he kept the pro test session. I mean, every single pass we left, it took the hit. It went out straight initially. You know, a lot of other guys were having some issues, either just throwing too much at it, or I don't even know what was going on.
Yeah,
but,
there was a lot of guys in the beginning of the day that were spinning
I think we were one of the very few cars that actually never even thought about spinning the tire on the hit. 60 foots were in the teens and 120 all day. Eventually getting all the way down to a 117 on the second to last pass. First three or four passes, we had the issue going right. So I was aborting the runs, trying not to drive out where there was no traction, because once it kicks the tire out there, under boost, there's no saving it. It'll put you right to the other wall. So made the fifth pass. Again, was expecting the car to make a hard move to the right. It made a subtle move to the right that I was able to steer through. Went through the 8th mile finish line under power, and the scoreboard lit, and the car went 459 at 162. You know, that's a number that we've been chasing for a long time. I mean, you can go mid-4s, you know, you've got something. You know, there's other cars. There's even other cars in this shop that haven't gone 459. You know, I'm just
Here we go.
happy to say that, you know, I am the fastest car in the shop. And, you know,
I
somebody
knew
else,
this shit talking was going to start.
somebody else held that title for a little while, only because my car was broke. But, you know, it's where it should be now. So it's going to stay here. And we're only going to go faster from here. So, you know, that person should probably rethink racing, you know, overall.
We're supposed to be a team and everybody's got to talk shit on each other.
Yeah, so anyway, car went the number. I looked up the scoreboard, locked eyes with the scoreboard, forgot I was still...
See, what he's not going to tell you is he's actually looking at the scoreboard because he was watching the wall because he was trying to make sure he didn't get that close to it.
And I locked eyes with the scoreboard, kind of forgot to lift, drove probably an extra... What was the race time?
Well, you were, I think it was 5.2 seconds into the race time.
Yeah, so the run had been over for almost a full second.
Then he went 175 mile an hour before he got out of it.
And make a long story short,
when we pulled up, and we have footage of this, you'll see it. When we pulled up and pull next to Mike here in this clip, you'll see.
the brakes are
I
smoking.
go, what did you do to your brakes? They were blue as fuck.
So I go through the run, I see the scoreboard, I forget to lift, I watch the scoreboard all the way almost towards the finish line, realize I didn't pull my chutes, decide I'm gonna have to just stop it with the brakes, and we got it stopped with the brakes.
And for those that aren't familiar with Cecil, there's a long shut, like it's a decently long shutdown, but it's not near as long as like Maple Grove
I
and
wouldn't say it's
MIR or
decently
anything
long.
like that. But the thing is, at the end of Cecil, there is nowhere to go other
Except
than
the
into the
woods.
trees. There's literally like a net that they use for like catching airplanes, and then that's the end of it. Like, that's it.
So, thing got stopped, whatever, they came pick me up. They were all happy because, and kind of cocky because they didn't think I knew what I ran.
Well,
So
we didn't realize he was staring at the scoreboard as he went past it.
they pulled up and they were trying to be all coy and act like it was no big deal, not just a normal pass. What do you think you ran? I'm like, I saw the scoreboard already, so they were pissed off about that.
I wasn't mad about it, it's funny.
So anyway, get the car back, go over the tune-up, decide to try a couple things. Rain was coming in.
Yeah, that was a big thing we didn't mention here is Hurricane Ian was coming up the coast at this point in time. The whole day I'm watching the storm line come up and I'm like, we only have till 3 o'clock, we only have till 3 o'clock. I would have actually played around with some more different settings and stuff like that with the suspension, but what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to lose a hit on the track based off of we were only going to get so many. I figured we were going to be done by 3. We actually were able to run till 5. I think 5:30 was the end of it.
So we came up with a game plan, tune-up number 3.
So on the Haltech, he has the can pad, and you're able to go in, and I can put 6 different boost curves in for him, and you just hit buttons, and it goes up and down, and it'll change the curve. So we had curve 2 in when it went to 459. I made a little bit more of an aggressive curve, trying to make the 60-foot more aggressive, and that was curve number 3.
Yeah, so we went up. Brad failed to remind me to change the
I
button.
told you 3 times.
So, as a crew chief, he's supposed to come up to the driver's window. The lights are also color coordinated so that you can't
It
mess
goes
this up.
green, yellow, red.
Right, green, yellow, red. I should have been on red. I was on yellow, and he didn't notice that, so I didn't make the setting change. And we wound up making the same pass we made before. This time the car did move a little bit more right than I wanted it to, so I actually lifted before the 8th mile. Still went like 462 at 160 something,
Yeah.
right? So I think it was a slightly better pass than what the first one would have been, but still probably in the 450 range somewhere. And couldn't be happier, man. Like that to me is our first full day of testing. You know, and it's it just takes time to get these things sorted out sometimes.
I really feel like for this entire season, Mike has basically like hated this car. So I was really hoping. I think we both kind of really hated it going into Friday.
It wasn't just me. It was like I hated it.
It
I
hated
was
you.
catching a bunch of shit from people
Yeah.
about, just why isn't the car doing this? Why isn't the car doing that? And it comes down to this. If you're going to have a car like this, you need to take the time to take all the pieces apart that are unknowns and make sure they're knowns. So shock should go out, trans should have went out, motor should have been freshened when it was supposed to be. So I spent all this time fixing issues that should have been discovered over the winter.
Yeah,
And that's the bottom line.
The course of the year.
We would have been here in spring.
Yeah.
There's no reason that these weren't the passes that we should have been making in April. And it's no one's fault except mine. So, lesson learned. Sucked. And ran around like chickens with our head cut off. But, you know, we got there 6 months later. But we got there. So, I'm happy.
Yeah.
And honestly, as consistent as that car was running now, like, 450s is like the ceiling, I'm sorry, that it should be running. Like we shouldn't be going slower than that.
Well, that's also, you know, you figure we were only on 30 pounds of boost.
Yeah, that's the other thing. We only 29 or 30.
It was 30.
Yeah.
On the very last run, I went to 30. I don't know.
It was 30 pounds of boost, but also remember,
It's not coming in until after 2 seconds.
right, 2.5 seconds is when we saw full boost. So if we can get that down to 1.5, 1.6,
Yeah.
that's a, without adding any boost, that's a faster pass. So only can go up from here. And sky's the limit. We're going to World Cup. Going to run quarter mile down there, 200 miles an hour. Should be pretty insane.
You're going to throw the chutes.
I'm going to throw the chute. I have to throw the chutes. And we're going to run the warrior class. Those guys are generally a few ticks ahead of me in the 8th. But I think up top, this car is going to be tough to beat. So, looking forward to it. Keep your eye out. And again, you'll hear from us before and after MIR World Cup.
All right. Like, share, and subscribe to Horsepower Brothers.